Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a combination that I'm really excited to see what kind of results it can give us, and it's one that one of you guys suggested that we try, and I definitely think it's got potential to give us a really nice looking pattern, so we'll see how it does. But as for the shells I've got today, I brought out some more of the Kinetic Gunwerks loads, but these ones are their 20 gauge, 3-inch, 1 5/8 ounce payload of TSS 9s, moving about 1100 feet per second. We've tried our fair share of Kinetic shells now with some really nice looking results on a number of occasions, and these 20 gauge shells are no exception to that. So I've got some high hopes for these shells through today's combo, but I think it's going to come down to how well they perform through this choke. But as for our setup today, I brought out my Stevens 301 20 gauge. It has a 26-inch barrel on it, but for the choke, we've got the Primos Tight Wad 570 constriction in here today. For being a budget choke at I think $20-ish, give or take a little bit, it has given us some very nice performances on a number of occasions with TSS 9s similar to those Kinetic shells. So I've got some high hopes for this combo today, but we'll see what they can do together. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. The turkey paper's at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shells. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see how the Kinetic 20 gauge 1 5/8 ounce 9s can do through the 301 with the Tight Wad 570. I've got some decent hopes for it, but we don't know until we try it. So let's take our shot and see what it gives us. Alright, that shell gave us 1125 through the chrono. Boss claim is 1100. So from that 26-inch barrel, I'd say we're pretty close to being right on the money there. So looking perfectly fine for a velocity, but how did they actually perform through that tight wad down there at 40? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and we got a decent pattern on our hands here. Yeah, we absolutely have a dead turkey there all day long, a number of them through the brain and a bunch more down the spine. So yeah, you would have absolutely gotten that turkey, and there's nowhere left or right on that paper that he can move to and get away from you. So it's absolutely a more than capable 40-yard turkey pattern. Now looking at the pattern as a whole, it isn't nearly as tight or condensed or as hot of a core as what we have seen from these shells previously. It's definitely a little bit more on the broad side, a little more open, which might be exactly what some people are looking for. Other people might want it a little bit tighter than that or have a little bit hotter of a core area, and there's nothing wrong with either option, but this still is a very capable pattern. It'd be a very good hunting pattern. At 40, you're going to be fine. At 45 and 50, you're still going to be fine, but at 20 or 25, it might give you a little more leeway to work with, which a lot of people really like. Now moving in here and looking close at our core, we have a lot of pellets through there. It is a pretty nice and even spread. However, we do have a couple little void areas, mainly over here close to that 10-inch ring behind that bird's head. There's a little bit of splotchy stuff going on there, and up here in the top right corner of that turkey target, there's not really a bunch of pellets up there either. So it's not the most perfectly even pattern we've seen out of these either. It does have a few voids and stuff to play around with. Around the edges, we definitely open it up a little bit. There's a little bit of splotchy stuff around there, maybe a few flyers down there at the bottom, and that kind of continues around the sides and the top up there as well. So it's not a perfect pattern, but still absolutely usable. Now I honestly was expecting a little bit better out of that tight wad with these Kinetic shells, but maybe from our previous testing and stuff, they might just prefer to be choked down a little bit in the constriction. This is a 570, which isn't a super open choke for 20 gauge by any means, but it is a little bit on the more open side as compared to average being, I don't know, about 565. So these might just prefer to be choked down a little bit more in the constriction if you really want to tighten them up a little bit. So definitely not a terrible pattern here today by any means, but maybe a little bit of a mixed bag for some people. It might be a little bit more on the open side. It might have a couple more little splotchy areas or a couple smaller voids than what we typically see from these Kinetic shells. But that's why you test things through as many different choke combos as you can, because some of them are going to work out way better than others. So overall, in my opinion, I wouldn't hesitate to turkey hunt with that pattern. It's more than capable, but there's definitely better combinations out there as far as choke goes for these particular Kinetic shells. So I'd call it a good performance, but not necessarily a fantastic, great performance either. Alright y'all, well, I was unfortunately not able to find the wad. With the wind today, it really could have just went anywhere. I reviewed the footage and didn't really see anything hit behind the target, so I have no idea where it went. A little bit unfortunate, but that happens sometimes. Either way, what did you guys think about that pattern right there? I'd call it a solid performance. It's not the best we've seen from these Kinetic 20 gauge shells, but if you're somebody that prefers a little bit more leeway, a little more broad of a pattern, then that combo would be perfectly fine for you. It's gonna be capable out at 40 yards, and you're gonna be fine to push it to 45 and probably 50 as well, and still have more than enough pellets to get the job done. So it's definitely not bad overall, but it does kind of seem like these Kinetic shells might prefer to be choked down a little bit more in constriction if you really want to get those nice, tight, super hot patterns. And that's why you always test your combos before you take them out on a turkey hunt to see what it actually does and which combination of stuff you prefer. But leave all your thoughts down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these 20 gauge Kinetic shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? Would you hunt with that pattern? Or is it a little bit broad, or maybe a few too many voids for you in it? And what other shell or choke combos do you want to see with either those 20 gauge Kinetics or that Primos Tight Wad choke? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.